Hi, and welcome to my YouTube page. If you don't know me, my name is Jessica Sandhu. Let me share some labels, my labels. So I'm a health coach, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm based in Washington, D.C. I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I'm a prairie girl. I left the prairies at the age of, let's see, 19, just turned 20 rather, and I moved to the UK. And then a couple of years later, I made my way to Washington, D.C. In 1999, and have been here ever since the Clinton administration. If we're speaking in administrations now that I've been here for one, two, yes, I'm counting them out loud. Three, four, I'm on my fifth administration. There we go. Yeah, so I'm a health coach in Washington, D.C. I've been on an amazing journey of discovery. My labels, I'm a health communication major from the University of Maryland and had a keen interest in health for a long time. I'd probably say since the age of, I don't know, 11 or 12. Had a gym membership for a very short period at the age of 16. Couldn't afford it. We got kicked out, me and my friend Linda. But I really enjoyed being in the gym, even though I didn't really know what I was doing. But I held a level of working and wanting and striving to be healthier in a lot of different ways. When I lived in London, England, I was at the community center or the health fitness center, and swam laps, and to save money from the tube and any kind of cab or mini cab, I would walk from my East London apartment to the center of London to work my waitressing jobs and my retail jobs. Yeah, I mean, I have struggled with, I would say, addiction in all its forms, codependency, shopping, probably drinking, and maybe even drugs. Nothing harsh, nothing hard. Um, just a little bit of marijuana in my later life. I was not into it earlier on. But I discovered yoga and health in about 2001, 2002. I stumbled into A Joy of Motion, which is like a local dance production theater, whatever you call here. And then I carried on taking a class at the community college before I went to university, a yoga class. And I have to say that yoga has been really the through for all of this. It's been sort of the thread of my life. And at the beginning, little botchy, like taking it occasionally, knowing that I felt good when I did yoga, and then falling off the yoga train, and then realizing when my back ached that I needed the yoga. I actually had an MRI, and I had, I had done yoga already a couple times and had an MRI because I just had this back pain that wouldn't go away since I was about I don't know, I think 15. In Winnipeg growing up, it's very cold and wintry. And if you don't get your tires changed often, which we couldn't really afford, and we didn't really have a car, like a regular car, like consistently having a car, you dealt with like sliding cars into one another, just like a little rear end. And so we had that, I had that a few times. So I had neck stuff, and then I had back pain, and I just attribute it to that. But around my early 20s, I had an MRI, and they told me I needed to go see a physical therapist. And the physical therapist had essentially just said, "Hey, do these kinds of exercises," which was putting your arm against the wall, reaching for your toes. And they had these little things on my back that like made this twitching sound. It felt like electromagnetic, and I didn't like it. I liked to move, and I felt like it was a waste of my time. And I realized that the movements that the physical therapist was having me do were very similar to the poses that I had done in the very limited yoga classes. And I realized as I was doing yoga more and more, when I was in university, when I waited tables, and even when I started working a day job, throughout that whole period, I literally thought that like if I worked or, moved to a desk job, that my low back pain would go away, and that I would be able to stop doing yoga or do it in a more limited way, because I was realizing I was doing yoga pretty much every day around the mid 2000s to help alleviate my back pain. And lo and behold, even when I got a desk job, it never went away. And that was in the early 2010s. Yeah. And so, through that whole period in late 2008 to 2010 was when I really got into a super healthy diet. I started doing marathons, and you need to have a specific diet to have longevity for running, and you needed to sustain your effort. And it really helped me in my performance at work in a waiting tables job. And it helped my performance when I was in school. I felt like, nothing could penetrate this brain. Now, listen, this brain needs a lot of work still, but I felt as though that the cardio paired with the stretching of yoga and the mindfulness of yoga and this amazing diet. I was experimenting with veganism, vegetarianism, and just sort of being like, anything would not pass these lips unless it was like super nutritious, just super dense. And I stuck with the superfoods. And I just realized, like, whoa, like I can have this amazing energy. I could be much more happy. For the longest time, I was on depression pills, anxiety. Didn't take anxiety pills, but it was mainly depression. But I did have anxiety. And also sleep issues started to arise in, my late 20s. And I had started taking Ambien. And all of this, our life is just like threaded. It's a threaded mess, just like sometimes our low back is. And the throughway was yoga, but also working on my diet. And around, when I was finishing university in 2010, and even just before then, I realized that I really wanted to teach yoga and I wanted to become a health coach. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how the path was going to lead me to do this, to make a living off of it. But I felt determined. And it was around the same period that I started doing vision boards. And I had a couple of suicide attempts in there, 2002 and 2008. One was in California, and I went to the Sherman Oaks Hospital. It was on a road trip with a boyfriend. And the next time was in 2008, and I was here in Sibley Hospital in Washington, D.C., and it was with my fiance. And in both of those were alcohol induced. I didn't really know how to share anything about myself, a label I could say is that I'm Native American. That's an American term. First Nations in Canada on my mother's side, and my dad is an Indian from India, and that's on my dad's side. And I grew up with my mom, only my mom. My parents were divorced when I was really young. My dad was actually deported when I was just I wasn't even born yet. My mom was about halfway through her pregnancy with me. And then a few months later, I was born, but he had been deported already. And there's a lot of speculation as to why he was deported. I don't think that side of the family really appreciated him marrying my mother. They married when they were both 20, or she was 20 and he was 21. But so I didn't have a relationship with my father, but I also had my mother, and so I grew up with the umbrella of First Nations in Canada, Ojibwe from Western Ontario. I was born and raised in Manitoba, but my mom and her family is from Western Ontario. And there we didn't grow up on the reservation. My mom didn't really grow up. She grew up in a town just outside of it. There's the way you label, First Nations in Canada. My grandfather has some French, white, I guess, on his side. And so he didn't necessarily qualify, as far as I know, to get a house on the reservation. There had to be specs, or you had to have a specific amount of blood. Your bloodline had to provide you with, the treaties that you needed in order to gain status. These are terms that I don't really know, to be honest. And I'm not going to blame my mom, but because I think there's a lot there that I'm learning right now about why she kept us from a lot of those traditions and a lot of, that kind of understanding of what it is to be Native in Canada. But I grew up in Winnipeg, and we did have access to the reservation that my mom was associated with, in which my grandmother ended up living with my grandfather eventually, and they got a house. They didn't actually get a house until way later that had plumbing. The first at least 10 years or 12 years of my life, whenever we went to visit my grandmother in Western Ontario in Whitefish Bay, actually, Northwest Angle was where we went, and it's right across Whitefish Bay. It's in Ontario, and a body of water is between them, and there's a bridge. But I remember going to an outhouse at my grandmother's, and this was a very I don't know, it just felt normal, like I didn't like it. Obviously, it was like I was a little kid, and as I got older, I really hated it. And as my grandfather had, he was wheelchair bound, they had just like a tub in the kitchen that they covered. That was obviously, really sort of not ideal for anybody to not have that plumbing, and to have someone in a wheelchair have to use that is disgusting. But it was just what I knew. It was just, who I was and who I am, and and so I say all of that because I'm learning that more and more of that part of my life has really affected me and my mental state and how I feel like I belong in the world. It's yeah, I'm uncovering it more and more, and I'm realizing more and more how much um, I never really fully embraced being Native. I personally felt as though there was apprehension on my mom's side, but these are things that I'm again learning, and I don't necessarily blame her. She really protected me as a single mother with me by her side. And I totally am grateful that she protected me all those years to, stay away from, the male gaze on the reservation, but also just in any situation. She always had her eyes on me as her firstborn daughter. And I'm actually grateful for it. I didn't understand it at the time because I felt like she really wanted to control me. And, we had a relationship that is very typical of mother daughter. We got along, we didn't get along sometimes, and that's sort of what happens. But in the end, I love her so much. But I didn't realize that all of that was affecting me and creating a deep sense of complexity within myself and a lack of congruency, and really embracing that side as something that I should be very proud of. Now I'm learning more and more about that part of my family, and I have been on a journey of self-discovery and learning about my mom. Eventually, I'd love to learn about my dad, and I'll talk about him on another day. It's a little fraught. I've never really met him as an adult or even as a young adult, or have any recollection of him in my life, although I know he made some amends, or he tried to, through the years and later in life. When I tried to reach out, it was denied, which has been very painful for me. But it's also been my process in terms of like reaching out and having that experience of hiring a private eye, et cetera, et cetera. But that takes an effect on people. And I think that for the longest time, I tried to really deny that that was really affecting me, when in fact it was. And so I dealt with depression, and I tried suicide. And, right now I'm working with a therapist, and I had a therapist for many years where I did a lot of talk therapy, and it was very helpful. And I definitely do not want to diminish that. And I definitely do not want to diminish taking pills to help me. I no longer take pills, any antidepressants or any Ambien or anything like that, because I knew I wanted to get out of that phase. I didn't like feeling like I was on like prescription drugs. If you've ever taken it, you can feel your body being sort of controlled, numbed in a way, blunted in a way. And again, it's there for a reason, and it's there for any kind of heightened feelings of intense emotion that if you didn't have would otherwise make you either harm yourself the way I had done. And again, going back to yoga, yoga has really helped me get into my body and helped me really tap into any kind of tension to release. And it has been a trauma in my body. I didn't have, I'm so grateful. My mom, opted to stop drinking when I was really, really young. She kept a roof over our head. She worked really hard. She put herself through school. She became, a social worker, and she made me very proud. I was so proud of my mother growing up and all the things that she did and all the things that she provided for me and my brothers and sister. And but that still goes with saying that there's a lot of depression in my own family, and there's a lot of feeling of despair. And as a eldest of these siblings and my mother, I'm often, supporting my family, sending money to my family, calling and being a real cheerleader. And it's an extension of what I do in my real life in Washington, D.C. as a health coach. And as a yoga instructor, I offer support to my friends and to my clients and my students and my family. And this can be very, very heavy on me, to be honest. And so through the years, when I take vacations, I totally go away by myself because I really need to get away from taking care of other people and making myself very just amenable to other people. I need to have a break from that. Otherwise, my life will not feel at all good. So I work really hard to practice self-care, to do my yoga, to read, to learn about why I operate the way I do. I am not perfect. I am a work in progress, and I share openly my flaws with my students, with my apprentices, with my clients, all of my clients. I have a lot of amazing clients that I've worked with now, worked with previously, who know me. I mean, I don't act any differently than I do with my students in the classroom, online, in person, with my friends and family. And I am a flawed person, and I have enjoyed teachers who have been the most flawed because I can see that they're doing the work, and I'm doing the work. And again, I'm a work in progress, and but I deal with. Oh, I personally have a lot of insecurities and a lot of feelings of unworthiness, and this is my work right now. This is where I am right now. I'm right now at this feeling like I'm just at the very, 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 very beginning, just like skimming the surface of understanding where I am and how I land in the yoga community in Washington, D.C., which there is not another Native American person, First Nations person. There are barely any persons of color in this community, especially in Washington, D.C. And, and as a Canadian, as a person, as a Native person in this world who has and deals with such sometimes crippling unworthiness in a world where, I personally have to feel the way I operate. Turns to be a little bit more aggressive, and I know it's very unsettling for people. And this is where I'm working. I'm working on some of my own anger issues and some of my own bitterness issues, um, because I think peeling those layers is going to get me to where I need to get. I'm trying to enjoy the journey as well. I feel very excited that I'm starting to feel like I can really own my truth. And again, yoga has been the through way to where I am right now. And again, I'm feeling at the precipice of something new, and I'm happy you're on my page. That was a lot of information. That was a little bit of a TED talk, and that's probably going to be in my book. So still, you better buy my book. Just kidding. Not kidding. I'm sure there's going to be a book. But I have to work through my unworthiness issues first because I don't feel like I really deserve that success. And at the same time, I do. Do you realize how important I am? Just kidding. Um, I'm going to post this video because why the hell not? I'm exploring right now, and I want to share more about my work in the yoga community, my work in the health and wellness community, in the Native community. I want to be the bridge to the Native community as much as I can, and really give the tools to the people who I think really need it. I'm going to always fight for the justice of all, for all my Jewish friends, all my Black friends, all my Asian friends, all my Native American friends, all my Indian friends, everybody, my Filipino, everybody across the world. I know so many amazing people, all my Muslim friends. Like, dude, like I am here for all of it, and I'm happy you're joining me here because we're going to be on a ride together. Thank you so much.